Welcome in to the Punt and Pass podcast. I'm your host, Drew Butler, joined alongside my co-host, Jake Fromm. Be sure to follow us on social media. We are at Punt and Pass on X and Instagram. I'm at Drew Butler. He's at From Jake. puntandpass.com, the number one destination for all things college football. Happy holidays to everybody out there. Merry Christmas. Whatever you're celebrating, I hope you are doing it with people you enjoy in a place that's comfortable and enjoyable. This is the Punt and Pass Holiday Extravaganza, Jake. This is the one episode that we're going to do this week. The college football playoff first round is in the book. The quarterfinal matchups are set. We've got news and storylines across the world of this great sport. And Christmas Eve and Christmas Day are just a few sleeps away. How are you, brother?
Man, I'm doing great. It is a special time of the year. Christmas is coming up. We just had our first ever extended college football playoff. We can talk about those games, how good they were, how bad they were. Can't wait to dive into that. But, man, can't wait for Christmas time. It's going to be great. NFL playoffs are almost around the corner.
Yep.
Man, what a time.
It is. It is quite the time. The Lions had a big win in Chicago this past weekend, and they go to take on the 49ers next week on Monday Night Football, which could set up a massive Week 18 game against the Minnesota Vikings. The three top teams in the NFC, the Eagles, the Vikings, the Lions, all vying for that number one seed. So Jake Fromm, our resident NFL quarterback right here on the Punt and Pass podcast, we're keeping it locked in, and we're all Lions fans for sure. It is a special time of year. The holidays are here. As I said, this is our Punt and Pass Holiday Extravaganza. It's our one episode of the week. So this episode is duly presented by our awesome partners. Of course, Solomon Brothers Jewelers. They've been fantastic all season long. We gave you guys the gift texting holiday gift line last week. Be sure to continue to use that as you need to. It is December the 23rd. So if you're catching this, try it on Christmas Eve. And if you walk into the store, mention Punt and Pass sent you, get up to 20% off your jewelry purchase. 3 amazing locations, Alpharetta, Buckhead, and of course, Sharpsburg. Solomon Brothers has all you need to get you covered for the holidays. Maybe you're planning on making a proposal right before the new year. It's just a great time to jump into a Solomon Brothers store, full bar setup. As I've always told you, the employees are the best. It's the only jewelry store that you need in Atlanta. The best selection of diamond and jewelry accessories anywhere. Check them out on social media at Solomon Brothers, SolomonBrothers.com. And this episode is also presented to you by our awesome partners over at PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app. Use the promo code PUNT when you play a $5 entry, your first $5 entry. You receive $50 instantly into your account, win or lose. Just pick 2 to 6 players. Predict that they will go more or less than their stat projections, and you can watch the winnings roll in. Shout out PrizePicks at PrizePicks on social media, prizepicks.com. Use the promo code PUNT. All right, man. Well, where do you want to start, Jake? Should we start with some of the news and headlines? We obviously have the games that we can recap. There was a lot left to be desired. Friday night, going into Saturday, all home teams won, all favorites covered. There was a lot of routes. I mean, there was not much drama whatsoever. How about this, dude? There was one lead change in all 4 games in the first round of the college football playoff. And Clemson jumped up 7-0. And then Texas routed them, and that was your only lead change of all 4 games.
Yeah, to me, that the way these games finished, and really for the entirety of the game, except for this one lead change that you speak of, to me it was very surprising that was the kind of football that we saw. I really thought that these games were going to be closer, especially the Ohio State-Tennessee game. I thought that was going to be a battle. I thought that was going to be a who has the ball last kind of game. And it just wasn't, man. These home teams, these home crowds, whatever it was with the preparation, the home field advantage, we can dive into what kind of potential factor we think really took these teams over the edge. And it may just be the better and higher seed. I don't know. Maybe, it could be just as simple as that. But something definitely happened. The cold weather, I don't know. Something was there, and these home teams and these home crowds showed out. So I think this is a good thing for college football atmosphere-wise. But obviously, we could want a little bit more when it comes to how the games transpired and wanting kind of closer games, and maybe slightly a little bit more parity as well.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that statement for sure. Things kicked off Friday night in what was an incredible atmosphere in South Bend, freezing cold. Some snow flurries were going. It was snowing pretty steadily earlier in the day. You had an in-state rivalry, Indiana 11-1, going on to take, of course, historical powerhouse Notre Dame. And Notre Dame won the game 27-17. And it wasn't that close. I mean, Indiana scored 2 touchdowns in total garbage time, like in the last 4 minutes of the game. It was 27-3. Jake, you had texted me. You're like, Indiana can't operate the offense. I mean, they were a total non-factor. They were getting a ton of points. I liked Indiana. They just didn't show up point blank. Jeremiah Love rips off that 98-yard touchdown run, which was incredible.
And that was
a pick early. And that was really it.
That was the dagger early in the game. Yeah. And Indiana couldn't find anything going offensively. All of their kind of hard play action, glance routes, none of it. Couldn't complete anything, couldn't operate. I don't know if it was crowd noise, the cold, you name it. Any reason for them not to operate on offense, and they didn't do it. And which is why we heard Cignetti talk about punting down 20 to 3, or whatever the score was at that point in the game. Like, look, my offense couldn't do anything. I at least felt like I had a shot for the defense to make something happen and turn the ball over. So that just kind of shows the faith that he had in his offense at that point in the game. Man, pretty nuts.
You know what? I was shocked in the moment when they decided to punt it. I was like, what on earth are they doing? They're down 3 scores. There's 11 minutes left in the game. Essentially looked like they were giving up. After the game, Cignetti, of course, was asked about it, and he said just that. He's like, guys, our offense couldn't do anything. If we were moving the ball up and down the field and just couldn't punch it in for a score, he said, I would have gone for it in that moment. We couldn't gain a yard. So instead of essentially having a turnover at midfield, I punted it. Our defense was hanging in there a little bit. Maybe we could get a 3-and-out and get the ball back and try something from there. So afterwards, when he explained it, I kind of tended to agree with what he was saying. You look at this stat line right here, if you're watching on YouTube, Jeremiah Love, 8 carries, 108 yards. I mean, he had 1 rush for 98 yards. So defense for Indiana stepped up a little bit, but it was just too little, too late. I was hoping for one more touchdown there super late after they almost got that second onside kick. Of course, it didn't happen. Notre Dame smokes Indiana. They look really good. Some unfortunate news for the Fighting Irish. Riley Mills, their top pass rusher, 7.5 sacks on the season. Jake, I think he had 40 tackles or so. He's out. He busted up his knee. He will not be playing in the Sugar Bowl against the Georgia Bulldogs. You mentioned Curt Cignetti. I thought ESPN Gameday, College Gameday, did a great job this weekend. Doubleheader. They were live in South Bend, then turned around. They were live in Columbus on Saturday. Cignetti gets on the set with the College Gameday guys, and buddy, he just let it rip. He was sticking up for his team, sticking up for their performances all season long. Keep in mind, this is like 5-6 hours until he has a game to coach. He's sitting right next to Nick Saban, who he coached with at Alabama for a couple of years, and this is what he had to say, which got a lot of attention, rightfully so, on social media.
I mean, look, there's a lot of skeptics. There's a lot of doubters. I get it, right? Haven't beat a top 25 team. Nebraska's 25th in the coaches poll. We beat their 56-7, And I've never beat a top 25 team. Well, Coastal Carolina back when we were little James Madison, moving up to the Sun Belt, they were 22nd end of the year. We beat them 47-7.
Okay.
So we don't just beat top 25 teams. We beat the shit out of them.
Okay. Google him. Coach, that's a pretty good compliment, I think.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. One thing you didn't learn from me is talking all the shit you talk. You got to understand.
I mean, that was an incredible line by Nick Saban, because Saban's sitting there, Jake, and you can kind of see him. He's like, wow, you're really talking this talk right before the game. You got a game to coach tonight. I thought that was a great line by Saban, saying, hey, the one thing you didn't learn from me is talking all the shit you talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Because Saban knows like the worst thing in the world is to go out and have that result after talking all that talk on a College Gameday set. Exactly what you don't want to happen. I don't know him saying that, if that was, for him, for himself to believe it, if that was for the fans, for them to believe it, or maybe that was for his own guys in the locker room to see him talking that. So maybe they believed it. I don't know who that was for. I'm not a fan of going above and beyond, talking all that smack before kickoff on the same day. It's just a little much for me, in my personal opinion, in my taste. And obviously Saban kind of felt a similar way on that, because I mean, to me, it's just absolutely utterly embarrassing to go out and do what they did and not even like operate on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, they couldn't do anything whatsoever. Keep in mind, Curt Cignetti's first year at Indiana, they go 11-2, of course, with one of those losses being to Notre Dame in the college football playoff. They went 8-1 in Big Ten play. Indiana historically been essentially non-competitive in the Big Ten, so a huge turnaround from them. He brought a lot of guys in from the portal. He obviously runs a system that can be highly effective. His accent too. I lived in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for 2 years. That is like a tried and true Yinzer accent. If you watch the Pat McAfee show, they kind of play off that. Pat is obviously from Pittsburgh, so he can kind of drum it up when he needs to as well. But Cignetti, man, that's it, dude. Went to West Virginia, born and raised in Pittsburgh, PA. He's got that Yinzer Steel City type mentality. And of course, he had some egg on his face late Friday night. Indiana season comes to an end. Notre Dame moves on to take on the Georgia Bulldogs in the Sugar Bowl, a little 7-2 matchup, a rematch of the 1980-1981 national championship game down there in New Orleans. So that will be a great game. The second game, Saturday afternoon, SMU goes up to Happy Valley. Again, another awesome atmosphere. It was a whiteout, kind of a shame. Kickoff was at noon. The place was packed. It was raucous, and it was just too big of a moment for the SMU Mustangs. 2 killer pick sixes by Kevin Jennings. I mean, they couldn't do anything on offense. And relatively speaking, Jake, SMU's defense held in there for as long as they could, and then the levee just broke. It was off to the races. This game was not competitive for 1 second. Penn State wins 38-10, kind of piggybacking off a really strong performance in the Big Ten championship game, in which they scored almost 40 points against number 1 Oregon. Penn State looking pretty good right now at the moment. They move on to the Fiesta Bowl. That's New Year's Eve at 7:30 p.m. Eastern to take on Boise State.
Yeah, I mean, this game was 14-0 early second quarter off of 2 pick sixes, and then 28-0 at halftime. It got out of hand early. SMU, I mean, them boys just looked cold. You could feel how cold they were kind of through the TV. And honestly, man, Penn State, I think they're a very good and complete football team. Obviously, they can play better than they did on offense. I think Drew Aller can play better than he did. But man, I wouldn't be surprised if they're a dark horse in this thing. I think they're a good football team. And I mean, James Franklin's right there on the cusp, man. That was a signature win, but he's close. They play Boise State next. And then the winner, that would be a big game. And then the winner of Georgia Notre Dame. And man, if he can find a way to win a couple ball games here, that's crazy. And then so talking about this, I'm going back to a conversation I had yesterday with Alan Robertson. Okay, on the bus ride, we had a long bus ride from Soldier Field to O'Hara Airport, and he told me James Franklin is the 4th head coach ever for Penn State.
Is that right?
I'm like, dude, that's crazy. You had the guy before Paterno, Billy O,
Bill
James
O'Brien.
Franklin.
Wow. I
4 head
never,
coaches.
ever knew that.
That is crazy. Isn't that absolutely absurd? I thought that was a fun fact. I still couldn't believe it when he told me, but we were kind of talking college ball and kind of what he thought about Penn State. But yeah.
Well,
man,
fourth since 1966. Is what it is. Because obviously there's coaches beforehand. I mean, I don't know how far back it goes. 6 coaches have led Penn State to postseason bowl games. The program has had 16 head coaches. So we need to talk to Alan Robinson about that.
Okay. All right. I can't wait to talk about that.
Well, it's hard to fact check you in the moment, but I was like, that can't be right. I mean, Paterno got there in 1966, coached until 2011, which is incredible. Tom Bradley took over in an interim role. I think he coached 4 games. And then it was Bill O'Brien and then James Franklin. James Franklin's been there since 2014. Kind of crazy to think about 10 years in. But it was a big win. This is what they do. Since the start of 2022, Penn State is 32-1 straight up as a favorite. They beat up on the teams they're supposed to beat up on. They're going to be a proverbial favorite in the Fiesta Bowl right now, an 11-point favorite against Boise State. Again, they beat SMU 38-10. Kevin Jennings, SMU quarterback, 3 interceptions. Penn State scored twice on defense in the first quarter, as you mentioned, Jake, and they're playing a good brand of football. Their defense is good. I will give them that. No question about it. Will they be able to slow down Ashton Genty? Of course, that's the X factor. Boise State has the bye. Boise State has been able to rest. And I would expect that crowd to be pretty split. I mean, I'm sure the Boise fans will be able to find their way down to Arizona. And of course, Penn State, a huge national fan base, should be a good one. So a big win for Penn State. James Franklin and the crew. Drew Aller seems like he's continuing to take steps to perform at a high level for the quarterback position at Penn State. And then, of course, their dual threat at running back with Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton. So big win for Penn State. All right, the game that I thought was going to be maybe the best game of the weekend was not, but it did produce the only lead change of all 4 games. Clemson jumps out to a 7-0 lead against Texas, and then Texas really dominates from there on out. Texas beats Clemson in Austin 38-24. I think Clemson got a late score. Yes, they did in the fourth quarter, then got it to 7 points with about 11 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And then Texas scored immediately with a 77-yard touchdown run by Jaden Blue, and they win 38-24. I mean, Clemson put up 400-plus yards of offense on them. They turned the ball over once. Cade Klubnik had a pretty clean game, 336 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception, but Texas just proved to be too much.
Yeah, definitely Texas is the more complete team here. Really loved the game that Cade Klubnik played. He's balling. I didn't know he was coming back home to Austin, get to kind of play in front of a hometown crowd there.
I think him and Quinn Ewers faced off in a state championship game.
I heard that
said? Yeah.
I heard that as well. So a lot of cool stories in this game. Obviously, the committee knew what they were doing when they set these things up. Way too much orange for my liking, but hey, you got to do what you got to do and take some things as they're given. But I mean, the game was the best game, I thought, just because it gave you a fun first quarter. You're like, oh, wow, this could get serious. Texas, obviously, too much continuing out through the game. Quinn Ewers playing better. I still think there is a lot. There's a lot of meat left on the bone, I think, when it comes to the Texas offense. They try to kind of wrinkle in Arch a little bit here and there. They tried a 4th and 1 QB sneak with Arch.
He fumbled the ball.
Man, that's bad. That's bad. So
can't do that.
You know, as a quarterback, when it comes to QB sneaks, man, when that center has to put his left hand on the ground and he's already getting low and that butt's getting high.
Tough exchange.
It is different than all the other exchanges. And man, when you're a new guy kind of coming in from the sideline, that's just a different feel. And that's just something that you give to the guy that's been out there, been playing, and has got a feel and flow for the game. So don't necessarily like that. If you're gonna put Arch out there, man, let him run like a zone read with the guy out in front and call it a day. But yeah, I don't know. They got a system there. I'm so curious to see how Sark uses both quarterbacks throughout these playoffs because he thinks right now for them on offense, it is a weapon.
This is a cool little story right here. It's from ESPN.com. Klubnik was stopped by Texas safety Michael Taffy on 3rd down late in the game. And then Clemson's comeback attempt was really over when Klubnik's pass on 4th down was broken up by Texas safety Michael Taffy with 1:15 left. Taffy and Klubnik were teammates at Westlake High School when they won the 2020 Texas State High School Championship together. The quarterback that they beat that day, Texas quarterback Quinn Ewers. So a lot, he's from Austin, Cade Klubnik. Yep. He said after the game, it was really special to come home, but I'm hurting a lot right now. This was not a vacation. We came to win a football game, and we didn't do that. Dabo Swinney continues on, and he says Cade Klubnik is an amazing leader. He's grown into a great quarterback. You're never out of a game with him. So Clemson, really an up and down season. They make the college football playoff. They win the ACC championship. They finish the season 10-4. Texas moves on to the Peach Bowl. So they're back to Atlanta where they played the SEC championship game a couple of weeks ago to take on Arizona State. Right now, Texas is a 13.5 or a 14-point favorite in that game. And watch out, man. Arizona State is spunky. Kenny Dillingham, their head coach, he's not afraid. Cam Scattaboo is running the ball like an absolute maniac right now. Will the long break kind of take away some of the momentum that Arizona State had gained late in the season? They were playing some really tough football.
Yeah, no, they exactly were. Texas almost nearly had 300 yards rushing in this game against Clemson. So it's kind of the tale of two identities. Hey, this is what we just did to beat this team. And now the main focus will be to stop Arizona State from rushing the football. A lot like Boise State, they have a lot of the similar identities that you're finding on their team and especially on their offense. So, hey, man, stop the run. And it looks like Texas and Penn State will find themselves later in these college football playoffs.
Yeah, man. Those are going to be two pretty good games. That Peach Bowl, I'm intrigued by that game a lot. Texas, Arizona State, 1 p.m. kickoff on New Year's Day. New Year's Day is going to be spectacular. Yes, it is. All right. The game that I think a lot of people thought would be the best game of the weekend, and it was seeded as such, Tennessee 8, Ohio State 9. Sorry, Tennessee 9, Ohio State 8. At the Horseshoe, night game. Complete blowout. Tennessee got their ass beat. Ohio State wins 42-17. I believe it was 28. Was it 21-0 at the end of the first quarter?
21-0 in the first quarter.
I mean, Ohio State blasted the Tennessee Volunteers. Tennessee comes out, no shirts on. They're trying to act tough. It's not too cold for us. And Ohio State came out slinging that thing. Will Howard had his best performance of the year by far. Jeremiah Smith gets on the board early, 6 catches, 103 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Ohio State held Tennessee to 256 total yards, forced 4 sacks. I don't know if it was too big of a moment. I don't know if Tennessee just had a horrible day. I don't know if Ohio State really flexed their muscles and said, this is what we're capable of. But if Ohio State puts together performances like that, Jake, watch out because they looked dominant.
Yeah, no, they absolutely did. I mean, I got to say, I missed the mark on this so much. I really believed in my heart that Tennessee was the more physical football team in this matchup. Dylan Sampson, Tennessee's running back, goes down, and that was it. They didn't have an answer. They couldn't do anything on offense. Nico Amaliava at times didn't have any time to operate, and then at times had all the time in the world, and just couldn't see the field. I mean, he was 14 of 31 for like 104 yards. Just never really got going in this game. Man, Ohio State came out confident, dominant, physical. All the things that you want to do in a big time football game, yes. They did. They set the tone early, physicality, dominating the line of scrimmage. They got off to a fast start, up 21-0, got their receivers going, got their quarterback going. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to say other than Tennessee just got hit in the mouth. I saw a tweet scrolling through X, and they made a great point. Is this Tennessee's ceiling of kind of what they were able to do this year? What is their next step? Can they get any better than what they were? I don't know. I think that's up for a great debate. And I think they need better play out of their quarterback if they want any hope of making it farther in these college football playoffs next year.
I don't know. I think, their ceiling might be that's a pretty harsh judgment, I would say. I mean, losing your top running back, one of the best running backs in the country, certainly could be tough. But this was a statement victory by Ohio State. Being able to bounce back after the disaster versus Michigan a couple of weeks ago that kept them out of the Big Ten championship. Assumingly the fan base wanting Ryan Day fired. Ryan Day is 66-10 as the head coach of Ohio State. A gigantic victory for Ryan Day and that entire coaching staff. His first victory over an SEC opponent. So as this game was a blowout, obviously the commentators have to figure out something to talk about as the game progresses and it's not competitive whatsoever on the field. So Kirk Herbstreit, Ohio State alumni, he opines and he's talking about the general mindset of the Ohio State fan base. And he calls the Ohio State sector of the fan base that wants Ryan Day fired immediately, quote, the lunatic fringe. Here is what Kirk Herbstreit said during the broadcast, and I will read it, okay? He says, I can't speak on behalf of the lunatic fringe. I'm not sure how they operate. The lunatic fringe at Ohio State is as powerful as anywhere in the country. Before I continue, allow me to just say every fan base has a lunatic fringe. Georgia does. Tennessee certainly does. Alabama, without question. Auburn, Ohio State, Michigan. Every fan base has extreme lunatic fringe. However, Herbstreit on ABC ESPN then continues on, and he puts a certain show in the spotlight. He turns his attention to First Take, Stephen A. Smith, Shannon Sharp, Dan Orlovsky, Mad Dog Russo. And he says, quote, First Take tried to fire Ryan Day. They thought he was done. So I'll be excited to see what they talk about on Monday after this performance. They had him out. They're trying to find replacements for him, but here he is. He's still got his hat on. He's still coaching. So shots fired, right? You got some ESPN on ESPN crime during the broadcast. And Monday morning, Shannon Sharp is back on First Take with Stephen A. Smith. And Jake, Shannon Sharp did not like that Kirk Herbstreit had words to say about him and his show during the game on Saturday night. Here's Shannon Sharp.
Stephen, I'm going to let it slide. I'm going to be a good teammate. I'm going to let it slide. Everybody's at ESPN, because had you not taken the route you taken, I would have lit their ass up. But I'm going to let it slide. You know what, guys? Congratulations, Ohio State. You won the game. But, hey, if we're going to be on the same team, if we're going to work for the same network, don't do that. Curt, Chris Fowler, I promise you, if you ever mention anything, any platform that I'm on again and talking about, I wonder what they're going to say in negativity, I promise you, ESPN ain't got enough bosses to keep me off y'all for what I'm going to say. So I'm going to let y'all slide today. I'm going to turn it over to D.O. before I get myself in trouble. But don't play with me. Go ahead, D.O.
Damn.
I got to follow?
Go ahead.
Man.
I mean, Shannon Sharp, take a deep breath, man. What are you doing saying that when Kirk Herbstreit is essentially just saying, he's saying the truth, right? He's like, you guys are firing this man on your debate show, which of course I would assume is fair game. That's what they talk about. They want to get people really excited to tune in and further debate the discussions that they're having. But Shannon Sharp saying that on a Monday morning, putting Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit in the bullseye, that's a bridge too far for me, Jake Fromm.
No, I think so too. I mean, like you said, I mean, there was nothing untruthful about what Kirk and Chris were saying. They were in the booth. That's what they said. That was on their show. And you know, it's almost like, hey, I can say these things. You can't say these things. And so when you try to come back and say the things that I'm saying, I don't like that. So I don't know. I thought it was a lot. Thought it was too much. And I don't know, man. Like it's just, it was an over the top response for something that I didn't think it really needed that.
and to our point, this just keeps it in the news cycle. Will Herbstreit respond? I don't know. I'm going to check out his X account right now. We all know that Kirk Herbstreit, after the Florida State thing last year, after the whole dog situation where, you know, pregame of the SEC championship game, he is playing fetch with his dog on the actual playing field. That to me seems a bit crazy. I don't want to go as far to say as that Kirk Herbstreit is fragile, but certainly he has taken a large leap forward as somebody who loves to present his opinion on an array of things. And then at times when it seems like he gets a lot of blowback, I don't want to say he shuts down, but remember before the 12-team playoff was announced, he was like, I had nothing to say. If I've learned anything, you know, I'm going to be wrong. I'm going to be canceled, XYZ. It's like, dude, you are one of the highest paid people at ESPN. I need you to continue saying, you know, Indiana shouldn't be in, which he was very vocal about during the game as well. He kind of put Indiana in the crosshairs and said, I'm not so sure why they were just an automatic in to the college football playoff. But I also will say, Jake, that these blowouts in the first round, I mean, look back historically, even when there was a 14 playoff, there was a lot of blowouts year after year. I don't think that every single blowout in the college football playoff, regardless of what round it comes in, should turn into this gigantic narrative of a referendum on, you know, the process or how the playoff works. It just is what it is. Tennessee had an off night, I would say. I think Tennessee, based on their resume, deserved to be in the 12-team playoff, and Ohio State beat their ass. I mean, that's football.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. I think, just to kind of go back on what you're saying, Kirk does kind of love to respond on Twitter and kind of defend himself. And I mean, that is part of his job description, is to have opinions on the state of college football. And then when it comes to the Tennessee-Ohio State game, to me, I'm on the side of Tennessee dropping the ball, but I completely understand and will 100% hear the argument that Ohio State definitely elevated their game and definitely won the game as well. So, and then all the college football fans and especially the SEC fans, Friday night they're hammering X or Twitter, and then all day Saturday they're hammering it. But man, where are the fans talking now when Tennessee goes and they lay an absolute egg that doesn't make the conference look, in my opinion, the way it should look, and they have to be responsible for that a little bit. But apparently Tennessee had one of the lowest strength of schedules when it comes to in SEC conference play. So the committee's got to figure something out. Is it wins? Is it losses? Is it strength of schedule? Wins and losses has to factor in most of the capacity. I get it, completely understand it. It just makes sense. I mean, do you win the games that you're supposed to win? Absolutely. But man, you got to take a look at strength of schedule, and maybe there might be more emphasis on it moving forward.
Yeah, I think the tough thing really was when you saw SMU lay an egg, Indiana lay an egg, Tennessee lay an egg. Clemson put up a fight, but I don't even really know how to. Texas just looked good. I mean, Texas ripping off 70-yard touchdown runs. Good luck. When you have Miami, Ole Miss, South Carolina, a team that you and I loved all season long, Alabama sitting at home, you're like, dude, you would just expect them to be able to put up more of a fight.
Yeah, when you have teams with dynamic football players who potentially have the chance to take over football games, right? Jalen Milroe, heck of a player.
Yeah.
Lenore Sellers, right? I mean, towards the end of the season,
the pass rushers for South Carolina, forget about it. Yeah,
they have dynamic football players that essentially can change the outcome of a game with just one or two plays that they're involved with. And then obviously Cam Ward, one of the top quarterbacks this year in the college football landscape. I mean, hey,
Colorado with Shador and Travis Hunter, like if they were to have gotten in or had a path to get in as an at-large, big-time playmakers.
But then also you got to look back at those teams and those programs, and Ole Miss especially, like you had your chance, you had your opportunity, you dropped the ball at home against Kentucky. Now, I will go to bat and say that I feel like South Carolina got screwed in this deal. They lost a close one to Alabama, and they lost to Ole Miss, two really good football teams. But they really got screwed in that LSU game, and they kind of got screwed on scheduling, man. They played a lot of the good SEC football teams.
Yeah.
But man, they won the games that they were supposed to win, and they gave themselves a chance later down the stretch, but just kind of sucks the way it worked out.
Yeah, somebody chimed in on X to me. His name's Kevin James, and he said, look, Ole Miss lost to Kentucky by 3. Keep in mind, Georgia beat Kentucky by 1. Ole Miss lost to LSU in overtime on the road, and they lost to Florida in Gainesville by 7. Florida was 5-1 when DJ Lagway was their starter. Ole Miss, however, beat Georgia by 18, beat South Carolina by 24. All of their wins were by double digits. It's just crazy to think that team, when you look, because this is the never-ending argument for the process of the college football playoff will be what matters most, wins and losses or who's the best team. Because South Carolina was one of the best teams in college football late in the year. If they had an opportunity to play in the SEC championship game, I don't care if it was against Georgia or Texas. To your point, Lenore Sellers, playmaker, using his legs, extending drives, keeping his offense on the field. On defense, Dylan Stewart and Kennard, those dudes were ass kickers. They could disrupt any offense in the country, but they did not play their way into that game. Ole Miss, they smoked Georgia. I mean, they blasted Georgia. Alabama, when Milroe gets going, forget about it. Miami, how do you lose to Syracuse last week of the season? I mean, that was a total disaster, and that's why they didn't play in the college football playoff.
Yeah, I mean, it's as frustrating as it is. I think that is what makes Kirby special at his job and in his position, man, is to keep the discipline and the focus week in and week out with 18 to 22-year-old kids.
And it's just going to continue because, look, they had to do it for the SEC championship game. Now they have to do it for the Sugar Bowl against Notre Dame. If they win that game, you got to do it in the Orange Bowl against Penn State or Boise State. Then if you win that game, you got to do it for the national championship.
And to that point, I think if Oregon goes on and wins every single football game this season and wins the national championship, I think it will be one of the more impressive teams and feats done in college football because of all the mess going on, all the distractions, and all the extra games that you had to win and go play to be able to keep that focus and go whatever it's going to be, 15, 16 and 0. Man, is crazy impressive.
Okay, so let's do a little rapid fire here on those quarterfinal games. Full disclosure, Jake, you're playing Monday Night Football next week. I think I might be able to jump on, do a little Inside 5, preview these games, and then we're going to, of course, recap what happened when she went back. But look, you're a football player. We know that. We appreciate your commitment to the Punt and Pass podcast, so I commend you, my friend. We'll go rapid fire. Okay, New Year's Eve Fiesta Bowl, Penn State, Boise State. Penn State's an 11-point favorite. Is Penn State's defense good enough to just shut down Ashton Genty and walk away with a win?
I really do. I think they're big, they're fast, they're physical, and I think they can play this keep away game on offense. What they do with their big, strong quarterback, their tight end, their running backs. Man, I think they're a very good, complete football team. Like I said earlier, dude, I think Penn State's a dark horse in this deal.
Wow.
You shut down one person. You shut down Ashton Genty. Now nobody has done it the entire football season. Nobody's done it. But man, bigger dudes, bigger conference, more speed. It's gonna be tough for Boise State to continue to operate the way they're doing.
Yeah, again, I go back to 32-1 as a favorite under James Franklin since 2022. So I'll lean Penn State in that game as well. New Year's Day, 1 p.m. right here in Atlanta, the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, Texas, Arizona State, Texas, a 14-point favorite.
Wow, 14 is a lot of points. Man, give me Texas. I think they built a lot of confidence this past game against Clemson. After winning a game they arguably should have won in the SEC championship game, they had their opportunities early in that game, didn't capitalize on it. And then they went and they got hit in the mouth by Clemson on their first drive, executed to perfection, had a great opening drive. Clemson did. But Texas came back and answered. They didn't bat an eye. So man, their confidence, I believe, is really good in the building on the sideline. I think if you let Texas get rolling, man, they'll get dangerous. And don't let Quinn Ewers get going and get his confidence, because I think that's the missing piece. If Quinn Ewers ever figures it out and gets that confidence and spinning and ripping the football and really seeing the field, Texas has the dudes, man. Texas and Ohio State to me have
they
the
got
dudes.
talent everywhere.
They have the dudes.
How much do you think it is an advantage for Texas just having played at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, knowing the stadium, knowing the locker rooms? I don't know if they're going to stay in the same hotel, but they're going to walk onto that field and feel relatively comfortable, I would think.
Yeah, we've been here before. They probably have a little bit of sour taste in their mouth. Hey, last time we were here, we didn't want to play well. That's another factor that goes into this. And then, too, I want to kind of ask you this when you mentioned earlier. I mean, I'm curious to see what kind of fan bases travel to this game. Like, is this going to be a 50-50 Texas, Arizona State? Is this? Yeah, I don't know. I'm so curious to see what this is going to look like. Obviously, Texas fans are going to feel good about winning this game, maybe saving for later to one of the bigger games. They've some fans were just there. Arizona State, this is new territory for them. It's a longer distance. I don't know. I'm so interested in seeing what the fan base looks like in this stadium, honestly, or even if they pack it out. I don't even know if they'll sell out in this thing.
No, I totally agree. I mean, Texas fans, the ones that came, they were just in Atlanta. And think about it. If they make it to the national championship, that's a third trip back to Atlanta since December the 7th. So that's some budgeting and some planning going into the thought process of the Tennessee fans. I would expect Arizona State to kind of burn the ship, so to speak, get everybody out here. It's been a magical run this season. So hopefully the Sun Devil fans show up in droves for what I think could be a good game. And watch out, Arizona State, give me the points in that game for sure. This episode of Punt and Pass, of course, this is the holiday extravaganza, folks. Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah, whatever you're celebrating. Thanks for making Punt and Pass part of it. Presented to you by our awesome partners over at PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app. Use the promo code PUNT. When you play your first $5 entry, you get $50 instantly. PrizePicks is the #1 daily fantasy platform in the world. Shout out PrizePicks at PrizePicks on social media, prizepicks.com. This episode is also presented to you by our awesome partners, Solomon Brothers Jewelers. Go into a Solomon Brothers Jewelers location. 3 available for you in the Atlanta area. The OG in Buckhead, 17th floor Tower Place. There's one in Alpharetta just past the Avalon, and the newest location down south of the city in Sharpsburg. When you go in store, tell them Punt and Pass sent you. You can get up to 20% off your jewelry purchase. Amazing staff, unbeatable selection, the best in-store experience that you can possibly get from a jeweler. Jake and I love Solomon Brothers. More importantly, our wives love Solomon Brothers even more. They will take care of you. Head on into a Solomon Brothers location. Mention Punt and Pass. You can get up to 20% off your jewelry purchase at Solomon Brothers on social media, SolomonBrothers.com. Yeah, the Rose Bowl is going to be sick. It's a rematch of one of the best regular season games from the 2024 season. Number 8, Ohio State taking on number 1, Oregon. Right now, Jake, Ohio State, a 2.5-point favorite. You know, historically, a Big Ten Pac-12 matchup. Now it's a Big Ten matchup. But Oregon, of course, coming from the Pac-12, the aesthetic in this game will be incredible. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is too big of a game happening too early in these college football playoffs.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm Oregon, I'm like, dude, how on earth did I get this luck of the draw here in the first round? For me, you know, the second round of the college football playoffs, that sucks. I mean, Ohio State, man, they got their pissed on football playing right now, and they are just, I mean, they're ready to roll. You could see it in that last game against Tennessee. They're a rejuvenated football team, to say the least. And to be honest with you, I don't want to play them. Now they took care of business the first time they played them. That was at home. This is going to be on a neutral field. I don't know. I can see why Vegas has it the way they do. I really do. Ohio State has the talent. They have the dudes, but Oregon has Dan Lanning.
I know.
That's
the X factor right there.
That's the X factor. I really want to see Oregon win this game.
I want to see Oregon win the game too. I love Oregon as an underdog. Dan Lanning, a master motivator. You know, I think Oregon kind of in the same light as Georgia, where the time off is actually good for them. Get off your feet, be able to kind of scout ahead, really look forward to it. Now it's a common opponent that they've already played. They had that game, of course, up in Autzen Stadium. They win by 1 point. That's where Will Howard was driving back down the field, slid with no timeouts left. The game ended on kind of a brain fart. I'm sure he wished he could have that one back, as Ohio State ends up losing that game by 1 point. But the only remaining undefeated team in college football, as an underdog, I just think it's a good spot for Oregon. Dylan Gabriel, a Heisman finalist. That defense plays with their hair on fire. That will be an awesome game. I like Oregon in the Rose Bowl. Those jerseys, that field, the historical nature of the Rose Bowl, of course, which you've played in, Jake. Quickly speak about that game, because that's sick, dude. I didn't get to go. My wife was super pregnant. Couldn't go to the Rose Bowl back in 2018.
Honestly, as being the guy who played in this game, I love hearing the stories from all the guys and fans who went to this game. Hey, you know, we were there. The flyover was incredible. The mountains were beautiful. But man, playing in that game was crazy. It was awesome. Best playing surface I've ever played on in my entire life. Grass was immaculate.
Oh, I love
second only to Augusta National. I mean, it was.
Have you played Augusta National?
I hadn't played, but I mean, been you know, kind of go out there, see the grass. Okay. You really got to respect, and enjoy and appreciate what you're looking at.
Great agronomy, yes, of course.
Yes, but dude, I mean, that game, I mean, forever be in my memory. I just kind of going toe to toe with Baker Mayfield down to the wires, second overtime, winning that football game, incredible. So, that moment could only be better if we took care of business the following week. But man, well, a great win. And it'd be a good one for a long time.
I love it. You're just bringing it back. Nostalgia rings supreme right here on Punt and Pass. I'm trying to think of any other podcast in the world that has a host that can talk about a Rose Bowl of what she won, that can talk about an SEC championship of which he's won, that can talk about some of these high-profile college football rivalry games that you've played in, and of course, a Sugar Bowl To boot, that is the last game we're going to touch on, the college football playoff quarterfinals between number 7 Notre Dame and number 2 Georgia. Jake, you've played in this game. So have I. You've won this game. So have I. It's the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans, 8:45 p.m. Eastern time kickoff. It's always such a long game. It's the last game of the quarterfinal round. It's the last game on New Year's Day. Georgia is now a 2-point favorite. This game opened up Notre Dame as a 1 or a 1.5 point favorite, quickly flipped. I'm guessing the sharp money likes the dogs in this spot. Yes, Gunnar Stockton is starting. A quarterback making his first ever start against a Notre Dame team. Where have I heard that before?
Yeah, where have we seen this before? I think I may have seen this movie back in 2017.
That's right.
In week 2 of the college football season. So
your first start in South Bend.
That's right.
Talk about that. What is Kirby Smart telling you? What is he saying in order to calm you down and say, this moment's not too big, you're ready?
Yeah, I mean, it started with a great week of preparation, really not trying to make too much of what's going on. I mean, everything was going really too fast to ever sit and analyze the magnitude of what this was. But man, just went out, had a good week of practice, trusted the guys around me. That was kind of the message. Hey man, just trusting what we're doing, trusting the guys around you, trusting the plan, and just go out and see it and make it happen. So went out, made a few plays, Terry with the one-handed grab, and then Bellamy with the strip sack fumble there at the end of the game. Good. I mean, like I would be lying to you if I said I won that football game by any means. No, man, it was a great team win. That's right. I mean, like, and we in that moment, we really didn't know what we were yet. We didn't know how good we could be, but it was definitely a huge and monumental win in my time there, in Kirby's time, and really kind of set us up for success moving down because, man, we won that football game, got a lot of confidence. We're like, hey, you know what? We could be on to something here. And look at where we're at now. We're on Punt and Pass talking about Gunnar Stockton in the Sugar Bowl in 2024 in the college football playoffs, making his first start against Notre Dame. Man, this is awesome. This is storybooks. This is going to be so awesome for him and his family. I have all the faith in the world that he's going to go out and play well. He's prepared for this moment since he's been there. He's ready for this. They're going to put together a great plan. They've had multiple weeks to do that. And for him, I'm sure after waiting kind of all this time, this 2 weeks that he has for this game, he's just like, man, I'm ready to go play. Let's just finish everything out. Let's get done with practice. I know he'd rather go and play this game tomorrow. So
yeah,
can't wait to watch this game. And he's gonna have to wait around all day long.
Such a
man.
long wait.
You know it, I know it, man. Something about waiting for that Sugar Bowl all day long. It's just absolutely terrible. I mean, this is like a 9 o'clock kickoff. It's just brutal how long you have to wait for this football game. But hey, it's just gonna make it that much sweeter at the end of all this.
No question. Notre Dame getting some bad news on Monday. Defensive lineman, team captain, senior Riley Mills. He's out for the remainder of the college football playoff with a right knee injury. He led Notre Dame in both sacks, 7.5, tackles for loss, 8.5. He had about 40 total tackles. So that's a killer for Notre Dame. There's no two ways about it. To the point you were just discussing, having the time to prepare for Gunnar Stockton, those 3 weeks, get him comfortable with the game plan, understand what they're going to want to try to do, to have him be able to rely on the guys around him. Clearly, his biggest help is going to be Georgia's defense, right? And I know that Notre Dame likes to run the football. I mean, that was on display against Indiana. But I just think, and we were talking about those playmakers earlier in the show, a Jaden Daniels type, a Jalen Milroe type, like those super fast twitch guys who can turn what would be a 4-yard loss into a 35-yard gain. That's not Riley Leonard, but that's not me taking away Riley Leonard's dual threat. He had over 700 rushing yards on the season. Jake, I think he had like 15 rushing touchdowns. Is that correct? I'm going to check that right now. But he runs more in designed run plays. And to me, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think Georgia's defense is good enough. Yeah, 15 rushing touchdowns, 751 rushing yards for Riley Leonard. I think Georgia's defense can scheme up for that. If Notre Dame's going to try to out Georgia, I would just say buyer beware.
Yeah, no, I agree with this sentiment for sure. I know Notre Dame's going to be looking at that Georgia Tech film and saying, hey, how can I utilize my quarterback? Hey, we're putting everything out there, leaving it all out on the field. And really, if it comes down to running the quarterback 15, 20 times, hey, we have to do it. So I could see that being their game plan in this game. For the Georgia defense, they've seen it. They know where their weaknesses are in a lot of those schemed up runs. So I don't see this being a shootout by any means. Kind of what you alluded to earlier, for Gunner's sake of not having to score 50 points or 40 something points like we had to do in the Rose Bowl. But I think this is going to be a good, physical, tough football game. Turnovers are going to matter. Take care of the football, execute in the red zone, execute on third down. And the Dogs, man, will be 5-0 and have never lost to Notre Dame in the history of Georgia, and we'll just continue this thing on.
I think it's a good matchup for the Dogs. I really do. And when you get Kirby Smart to have a long time to prepare, good things tend to happen for the red and black. So that will be a great nightcap to an unbelievable New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. Man, I hope everybody's having an awesome Christmas, a happy holiday, whatever you may be celebrating, whoever you may be celebrating it with, wherever you may be tuning into this Punt and Pass podcast episode. We've enjoyed breaking down this holiday extravaganza with you. Be sure to follow us on social media at Punt and Pass on X and Instagram. I'm at Drew Butler. He's at From Jake. Rate, review, and subscribe on YouTube as well. Our producer, Spencer Ray, has just done an absolutely phenomenal job cutting this up for us, putting us up on our YouTube channel /Punt and Pass on YouTube. So shout out to Spencer Ray. Happy holidays to everybody out there. Jake Fromm, anything on the way out, my man?
Of course. Merry Christmas to all, and to all, a good night.
Excellent. Thank you so much, brother. Go Lions this week. Everybody enjoy your holiday week, and we will talk to you next Monday. See ya.
We out.